Good morning. I am Father X. Are you caught up in a child custody trial? I defeated the multi-headed monster called family court, and now I'm sharing what I learned in order to help you do the same thing for the sake of your children. In episode 11A, we discussed your court testimony around the parent's background, career, education, and any prior criminal history. And then we got into the best interest factors. In episode 11B, we discussed how you can testify about the basic needs of your child and their educational development. In this episode, 11C, we'll discuss how to prepare your testimony about 3 additional best interest factors: the emotional and psychological development of your child, the parental guidance you provide your child, and the preferences of your child. Let's get to it. Emotional, psychological, and social development, and fostering the independence of your child. The goal is for your child to become an emotionally, psychologically, and socially well-adjusted and independent adult. How do you prove you're more qualified than the other parent to make this happen? It's subjective, and I think most family court practitioners don't know how to evaluate this topic unless there's something extreme happening to the child. So let's talk about how to testify about your kid's emotional, psychological, and social development. I'll discuss some more extreme scenarios and then some more common scenarios that would probably cover most people. In more extreme cases, one or both parents are creating serious psychological harm to the child. You can uncover this by asking, does either parent have anger management problems? Describe these instances in detail and show the pattern of behavior. Tell the stories of the other parent's excessive anger or mood swings. It's well known in psychology that being raised by a parent with anger management problems has negative effects on a child's development. It can damage the parent-child relationship. A child will have constant stress and insecurity, have difficulty concentrating, feel like they're always walking on eggshells, become less empathetic to others, become quiet or fearful, grow to become rude and angry themselves, or become less able to interact socially. And there's a higher risk of depression. Parents with anger management problems don't teach their kids proper coping mechanisms. Go to Google and research child development to help you prepare your case. Learn the language psychologists use to describe a child's development. If you use that language, you'll become smarter than most family court practitioners. It helped me in my own case. From what I've seen, I suspect there are many mothers with anger management problems in family court, and judges ignore this. They give default custody to the mom in the worst interest of the child, but in the best interests of the mother. This was happening in my case. But then our forensic psychologists and therapists exposed the mother's anger management problem, which made a real difference. Women have anger management issues too, not just men. If this applies to your case, you need to drive this point home with a judge again and again. It's a key factor. You can also ask, does either parent engage in violence or verbal abuse to the child or to others? Does either parent verbally insult the other parent in front of the child? Does either parent assault the other parent in front of the child? Does either parent talk badly about the other parent to the child, whether that person is around or not? Children need safety and security. Exposing them to anger and violence undermines this need. Also, kids want to know both of their parents are good. It hurts a child's psyche when one parent tells them the other parent has bad intentions or is evil. These behaviors negatively impact a child's psychological and emotional development. You need to tell the stories of these incidents in detail and the patterns of behavior in such a way that an uninformed judge can understand it. And tell the judge that past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. Let's discuss testifying about some more common scenarios. Your goal is to show you actively develop your child emotionally, psychologically, and socially, and therefore, you're an important part of your child's life. Show that if the judge decides to strip you out of the child's life to make you an alternate weekend dad, it'll create a negative impact on your child. Judges are likely to do that if you don't show them it's a terrible idea. Show the judge the damage they're doing if the judge blindly rubber stamps the mother for primary custody. How do you testify about this? Describe your child. The older they are, the more there is to talk about. Show you're in tune with your child and you understand them as an individual. For example, are they introverted or extroverted? Do they lead other children or are they followers? Do they tend to follow bad kids or do they hang out with well-behaved kids? Is your kid a bully, an athlete, or a nerd? What are their passions, dreams, and goals? Describe your relationship with your child. Talk about activities and conversations between you and your child. Talk about the things where they rely on you and learn from you. Maybe that's baseball, or chess, or math. What are the names of your kids' closest friends, and what do they do together? How do you interact with your child and create a safe place for them to ask questions and make mistakes? How do you encourage your child instead of exposing them to constant criticism? How do you help your child develop self-confidence and self-reliance? How do you help them identify and manage their emotions? How do you help them understand other people's emotions and develop empathy? Go to Google and research child development, not just for your child's current age, but for their future age. I read tons of child psychology articles, and that helped me prepare my case. I highly recommend doing this. You can even testify about how you're researching child development in order to make yourself a better parent. What will come up next in their development? What are your plans for dealing with these future issues like dating or adjusting to high school? Show you're already planning ahead for raising your child, because that's what a good primary custodial parent would do. Describe the mother's relationship with your child. If the mom has a positive relationship with the children, it's okay to say you want 50-50 custody because both of you are fine parents. But there's a balance here. If she's good with the kids, you can say you value that relationship. But you also don't want to portray her as the superior parent who should have primary custody. Acknowledge her skills, but don't overdo it, because the judge might be looking for that in order to justify removing you from your kids' lives. However, if the mother's relationship with the child is bad, and that creates an issue with her raising the children, then you need to talk about instances that are concerning to you. If you don't bring these things up, then the judge will be happy to rubber stamp the mother for primary custody. Don't be petty. For example, if your daughter and her mom were yelling at each other because mom combed her hair wrong, that's a small one-time issue. But if there's a pattern of behavior showing your child has learned not to depend on that parent, or resents that parent, or continually rebels against that parent, such that parenting isn't effective, then those are key issues you need to bring up. Because why would we make a child primarily live with a parent they despise? This is especially true if that parent is to blame for that broken relationship. These family dynamics are complicated, so think it through and bring your insight to court, because the judge won't bring any insight at all. Don't let these issues get swept under the rug. For each best interest factor, you also have to prepare for the false allegations that will come against you. Let's discuss one example with social development. Imagine if the mother complains that you ignore your 12-year-old kid and let him play video games after school for 3 hours and it's too much screen time. She says you let the computer raise your child. Tell your side of the story to show you aren't the neglectful parent she makes you out to be. Talk about how your kid plays video games like Roblox or Minecraft at home with his classmates and friends, where they log into the same Roblox server and they play together virtually, not with strangers. And the next day at school, they talk about the amazing Minecraft world they built. This is how kids socialize today. You're letting your kid independently build his friendships. And if your kid doesn't play Minecraft or Roblox with his classmates, then he wouldn't have that shared experience to talk about at school with his friends. Do you see the difference when you tell the total story instead of letting the judge only hear the mother's partial story? For both you and the mom, describe your strengths and weaknesses as a parent. When you write down your weaknesses, I'm not saying you should announce your weaknesses in the courtroom. You're writing all this for your personal pre-trial preparation to get ready for what the other side will attack you on. In a therapy session, you might admit you're weak in some areas and you'll work towards fixing them. But in court, negative admissions are used against you, unfortunately. In custody litigation, everybody tries to prove, I'm only good, and the other parent is only bad. And if you admit you're bad in some way, then everybody in court will jump all over it and use it against you in a custody decision. And that's unfortunate because it doesn't create an environment where people can be honest. Now, let's complicate this. You have to consider whether you come across as genuine or dishonest. If you have an obvious weakness but you deny it, then you come across as dishonest and that can hurt your case. But if you have a weakness that you're comfortable admitting, then maybe this makes you come across as self-aware and honest, and this can show you're a good role model for your kids. This is especially true if your parenting weakness is a minor issue. Think hard about how to testify about your weaknesses because it's tricky and depends on your total circumstances. Anticipate what the mother is going to testify about your weaknesses as a parent. If it's true, be ready to explain how you've addressed your weaknesses. If it's false, be ready to testify exactly why it's false. And be ready to testify about whether her accusations are significant or not. They might be petty nonsense. If they are, show them as petty nonsense. Plan ahead so you can handle the accusations when they come. Here are some other questions to address. Has your child ever been in mental health therapy? If so, with who, when, and for what reason? How did you help your child? What actions do either parent take to promote social connections between the child and other children, family, or people in general? Let's talk about independence and self-reliance. Letting your kid accomplish tasks on their own to grow their self-esteem. What actions have you taken to enable your child to become an independent person? How have you taught your child to become self-reliant? What actions will you take? These are different for toddlers versus young kids versus teenagers. These are areas where you can discuss how you help your child develop independence. Schoolwork, doing it on their own. Going to school by himself when he's ready. Activities, sports, and clubs. Household chores like preparing meals. Getting a job as a teenager or doing paid chores as a child. Teaching them about money, finances, bank accounts, and credit cards. Friendships without mom and dad. Stepping aside so they can have their private conversations with friends. As a parent, there are times when you actively help your child accomplish their tasks. And there are times when you let them go do their tasks alone, independently. Over time, there will be occasions to do each of these things. Describe both of those scenarios. Parental guidance. The parental guidance a parent provides their child is also a subset of a child's psychological development that we just talked about. Some of these best interest factors are interconnected, but I still recommend you break them down and talk about them separately as best you can. A lot of parental guidance happens as a matter of course as you live with your child, and you may have forgotten many of these occasions, but it's time to remember these instances. If you don't bring these up, then you're helping the judge make you an alternate weekend parent. Look at parental guidance in two major categories: discipline to stop them from doing negative things, and positive guidance to help them do positive things. How do you and the mom discipline your child? How are you each different? Give examples, including your child's behavior and your disciplinary response. How do you and the mom provide parental guidance for your child? Talk about challenges your child faced and how you helped them get through these challenges, or how you taught them coping skills. Talk about how you teach your child about the world around them so they can learn how to operate in that world. Talk about the life lessons you teach your child. Talk about how you help your kids make friends, keep friends, and settle arguments with their friends. Preferences of the child. In court, the preferences of a child matters more when they have some emotional maturity, generally age 13 and up, but it varies. The basic concept is that younger children don't have the maturity to decide what their preferences are. Here's a common example. If a child wants to live with one parent because that parent buys them ice cream, that's not a good reason. But if the child wants to live with one parent because the child is a teen who recognizes the other parent is overbearing or has wild emotional mood swings, then that's a reason that shows some maturity. For infants and toddlers, their preferences matter much less, but you can describe your toddlers or younger kids' reactions when you pick them up or drop them off. You can ask, What do you observe about your child when you pick her up? Do they smile and come running to you? What do you observe about your child when your parenting time is over and you get her ready to go see her mother? Does she resist? Does she become sad? Has your child stated a preference to live with either parent? Why? In general, courts preferred to avoid having children testify in court. The courts might have your child speak with a guardian ad litem or a forensic psychologist if either one has been assigned to the case. And these people speak to your child outside of court and report back to the court. My concern about these third-party evaluators and guardian ad litems is that they aren't familiar with the facts of your case, and they may not know the correct questions to ask your children to get to the correct answer. I recommend when you speak to these third parties outside of court, you tell them what your children have told you, such as, "Our 13-year-old son Johnny told me he wants to live with me because of A, B, and C reasons, but don't take my word for it. Ask him yourself." Do this because it's possible Johnny won't repeat this to these people because he doesn't know he has to say it, and they don't know they have to ask about it. You should also email this to the third party so there's a record you told them. And if the third party doesn't include this in their report, or didn't even ask the child, then during the trial, show that email as evidence that the third party was alerted to this fact and they chose to sweep it under the rug. Then you show the third party's analysis was done incorrectly. That may or may not work in your case, but you have to protect yourself against the possibility that a guardian ad litem or forensic evaluator will screw this up. You have to help them get this right. So we've covered 3 more best interest factors. In the next episodes, we'll discuss additional best interest factors, so you can deep dive into each one and understand what to talk about in your testimony. These might be the darkest days of your life. They were for me. I'm making these educational videos to help you navigate this nightmare. If you subscribe, you can get updates when I post more videos. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends who are in a similar situation. If you like, subscribe, and share, it'll help get this message out to more fathers. Please support this channel so I can make more videos. You can donate via my YouTube channel's About page using PayPal or Venmo.